been incredible. Coming to this show, you should expect the biggest tackles, strongest hits.
Speed, strength, a little bit of drama.
Gladiators, the UK Live Tour 2025. From the OVO Arena, Wembley, London. Starts Sunday, the 30th of November from 6 p.m. Exclusively only on Jackpot Button Lewis 1. Leighton and Build now on 2 as we head to the secluded Aida circuit in the Pacific as we have the 15th round of the Reimagined 1995 FIA Formula 1 World Championship season as we bring you full extensive race highlights of this year's 1995 Pacific Grand Prix. Introduced by Jack Wright with live race commentary from Murray Walker in Grand Prix Formula 1. The day has belonged to Michael Schumacher and Benetton as he's about to head around the last few corners, and he is going to once again take his 4th race victory of this year's 1995 Formula 1 season. As he comes round the last chicane for the 67th and final time, Michael Schumacher wins the 1995 Grand Prix of Europe, and more specifically, once again, the 1995 European Grand Prix!
And there is the chicken flag!
With 3 rounds left to go in this year's Reimagined 1995 F1 season, welcome to the secluded Aida circuit for the Pacific Grand Prix. The circuit itself is set among the scenic and mountainous areas of the city of Mimasaka in the Okayama prefecture part of the country of Japan. This 2.3-mile circuit was first opened back in 1990 as a private motor racing circuit for the wealthy people of the country. Soon it hosted its first race, staged by many veteran British racing drivers. Although only used a year ago back in 1994, most of the drivers and teams seemed to like this technical circuit. With several short straights and 11 fast and mostly tight sweeping turns from around the circuit, this secluded venue really is a great place for this year's race. And once again last year in 1994, the 83-lap race was won by Germany's Michael Schumacher driving in his Benetton Ford car after he started from second place. Brazilian Ayrton Senna took pole position in his Williams Renault, but unfortunately retired following a first corner collision with the Ferrari of Italian driver Nicola Larini, leaving Schumacher to remarkably lead all 83 laps of the official race distance. Larini's Austrian teammate of Gerhard Berger was second in his Ferrari, and fellow Brazilian Rubens Barrichello took third place in his Hart-powered Jordan, which was his first and the team of Jordan Grand Prix's first podium finish in their team's history. And last time out at a fairly wet Nürburgring circuit in Europe for the European Grand Prix, after missing out on winning on his home race at the Hockenheim circuit in Germany for the German Grand Prix, Germany's Michael Schumacher in his Benetton Renault had a storming drive in the very foul conditions to take his fourth victory of the 1995 Formula One season, with his championship rival of Britain's Damon Hill finishing a lap behind. While fellow British driver Martin Brundle in his Mugen Honda-powered Ligier took an impressive third place for the Ligier team, securing their second podium finish for the team in this year's season. And this is Brundle's first visit to the winners' podium, following his third podium finish from last year's Australian Grand Prix at the Adelaide Street Circuit. And as we now look forward to this year's upcoming Pacific Grand Prix, once again here from TI Circuit Aida, with only 3 races to go and only 1 point in it in the Drivers' Championship between Williams' David Coulthard and Benetton's Michael Schumacher, it could not be any closer. Good evening, Formula One fans. My name is Jack Wright, and welcome to another edition of, once again, my World Motorsport Playthrough series of Grand Prix Formula One, and to round 15 of the 1995 Reimagined FIA Formula One World Championship, with this year's 1995 Pacific Grand Prix from the secluded TI Circuit Aida in Japan. And once again, we would like to apologise for the delay on the upload of this particular edition of my playthrough series. A lot of has been happening recently due to also we're still in the autumn season. I've been picking up the occasional seasonal cold here and there. But unbelievably, just as we were just about to start filming, my throat was quite dry, and I had to be on quite a lot of medication. But luckily, it's now clear and hopefully infection-free for most of you. So, of course, I'll be in a fine voice as we get to, of course, the next round of this year's Reimagined 1995 Formula One World Championship. And we can get straight on to, of course, if you were with us last time, from just over a few weeks ago with the European Grand Prix from the circuit of the Nürburgring, which was fairly wet, and of course it was a wet race that honestly we certainly was not expecting. But another impressive dominant drive from the German of, once again, Michael Schumacher, winning his 4th race victory of this year's season for, of course, once again for the Mile 7 Benetton Renault Formula 1 team. As you can see, of course, I am supporting and sporting the team wear, of course, of the very team, because we are unbelievably once again going to be following the German for this edition of Grand Prix Formula 1, and it's quite remarkable that as we are going into the last 3 races and the final quarter of this year's Reimagined 1995 Formula 1 season, it is still all to play for, because another great podium finish for his championship rival, Britain's Damon Hill in his Williams Renault, and a remarkable achievement also for the local driver from Kings Lynn, fellow British driver Martin Brundle, for the first time since last year at the Australian Grand Prix at Adelaide, took his first podium finish of the year in his Ligier as well, and making the second, I meant to say second, of course, course, podium finish for the Ligier team, for the French manufacturer there, for, of course, which unbelievably has, of course, the proud owner of Guy Ligier, of course, was overjoyed with the results following an impressive performance there on the podium for the first time since, I think, the second podium finish for, I think it was second place finish, actually, for his French teammate of Olivier Panis at the Hungarian Grand Prix from a few months ago. But once again, as we can get straight on with, of course, as we can remind you of the current situation in, of course, both the Drivers' and Constructors' Championships so far, the point tables as it stands, and with that all-important race victory for Michael Schumacher, he is now just 1 point behind the current championship leader of David Coulthard, who failed to score in the points last time out at the Nürburgring, and it couldn't get any closer than that. It has been the closest all season long so far in this series, and my goodness, with, of course, this upcoming race here at TI Circuit Aida for the Pacific Grand Prix, Michael Schumacher needs another podium finish or even another race victory to make it even more of a challenge for David Coulthard to try and maintain that championship lead at the moment. His fellow British driver Damon Hill is still in third place with 44 points, 12 points behind him, staying there once again in third. Mark Blundell is 8 points behind him in fourth place in his McLaren Mercedes with 36. 5 points behind him in fifth is once again Michael Schumacher's British teammate Johnny Herbert with 31 points, and then John Alesi is in sixth place with only a 3-point difference between him, also with 28 points, staying once again in sixth place. Rubens Barrichello is just 4 points behind also him in seventh place, along with his Northern Irish teammate of Eddie Irvine in eighth place with 15 points there, and a 9-point difference between both drivers for the Jordan Grand Prix team. And then ninth place is fellow Frenchman Jean-Christophe Bouillon in his Sauber, of course, his Ford engine powered, that being Sauber, with 14 points. And rounding off the top 10 is Gerhard Berger, 1 point behind him, rounding off, like I said, in 10th place with, unlucky for some, of course, the number of 13 points. Just out of the points also, of course, 3 points behind him in 11th is Olivier Panis, and also we still have the likes of Carl Wendiger in 12th with 5 points, and tied in 13th with the impressive podium finish last time out for him, Martin Brundle is tied also with Japanese Yukio Katayama, and in 15th with the Finnish driver Mika Hakkinen in his McLaren Mercedes, with Taki Inoue from his Footwork Hart, and also still Heinzeld Frentzen and Mika Salo still with only 1 point each in both their Sauber Ford and also Tyrrell Yamaha as it stands. So with that covering the Drivers' Championship, and if you thought that couldn't get any closer, unfortunately it's not as close in the Constructors' Championship, but Benetton Renault are still putting the pressure on Williams as they still lead the Constructors' Championship with 96 points. They are 13 points behind them. So once again, as I said, Michael Schumacher and Johnny Herbert, if they can finish in the points today, and if Williams can't have an all-important big points finish as of this race today, it can make all the difference going into, of course, the last two races of this year's 1995 Constructors' Championship table and in this season. So, well, once again, still with over 35 points behind is McLaren Mercedes with 48 points. Ferrari, though, are still closing on McLaren at the moment with only 7 points in it with 41. And also 1 point behind them is still Jordan Peugeot. So, and I do know that, of course, following an impressive qualifying session from the Northern Irishman Eddie Irvine, qualifying 5th from just yesterday. He is hoping for another points finish, of course, to hopefully move up the Northern Irish team to challenge once again the, of course, the prancing horses of Ferrari in just with 2 races to go. And once again in 6th place is Sauber Ford with 20 points. Ligier Mood and Honda have moved up to 13 points following the podium finish there from Martin Brundle, and only 7 points behind them, still once again in 7th place. But still in 8th place is Tyrrell Yamaha with 5 points, and still in 9th place is Footwork Hart with only still 3 points at the moment. So there you go, everybody. Once again, it is looking very, very interesting in both the Drivers' and Constructors' Championship so far in this reimagined 1995 FIA Formula 1 season. And, of course, as we move to, once again, this is the start of the Asian rounds of this year's championship. Now, just to remind you, we can also just remind you, if you don't remember, right at the beginning of the series in our pre-season preview episode, that initially this race was originally scheduled to be held as the 3rd round of the season back in April on the 16th, but was then unfortunately had to be moved to October as of this particular month in the series and of this season, as the local infrastructure and communications were badly damaged by the Great Hanshin earthquake that hit the Kobe area of the country of Japan. So unfortunately that's why it had to be rescheduled. But it's good to know that everywhere around the circuit we've got glorious sunshine over the circuit of TI Circuit Aida. Once again, to remind you, it is in the Okayama part of the prefecture part of the country, and it's also based in the city, as we can also quickly look up here for any of you who do not know about that also as well. It is located in the city of Mimasaka, and of course, just to remind you, if any of you have not known, of course, this part of the country before, it is a well-known part of the country, and it's also in the Chugokyu region in the prefecture of Yokohama. Okayama there, sorry, and it's divided into 47. It was one of 47 in the whole country there, and it's also I can also clarify as well that the country is mostly not far away, I think, actually, to my knowledge, because since, of course, this is the one of 2, of course, races to be taking place in Japan, because the next race that will be following after this one, after when we've done with the Pacific Grand Prix, is the Japanese Grand Prix at the ever so popular Suzuka circuit. And as I think if we quickly have a look at where they are based, I think there's nothing much between them, both, of course, circuits, but we'll have a look more specifically. It's in the Mie Prefecture, there we go, of course, in Suzuka City. That's where, of course, the Suzuka circuit is based, and is just slightly a bit more east of the country there, if any of you may be interested there. So, but once again, to remind you of the circuit layout, is once again, it is 3.7 03 kilometers, which is 2.301 miles. And also interesting to know that for some of you that may not be familiar with, of course, why the circuit is called TI Circuit Aida, it is the abbreviation of Tanaka International, after the name of the golf club owner of Hayami Tanaka, and it's also though the name was officially known as TI Circuit Aida, but it does have some connection there, and it's a private motor circuit, motor track, motor racetrack, and as well as also being opened all the way back from 5 years ago, sorry, as a private motor racing track for the wealthy people of Japan. It soon hosted its first race staged by many veteran British racing drivers. and of course last year was the first time it hosted the Pacific Grand Prix in 1994, and also, like I said, last time out, Germany's Michael Schumacher won the race, and he finished ahead of Gerhard Berger in second in his Ferrari, and also also to remind you all as well, in third place, it was Brazilian's Rubens Barrichello there in his heart-powered Jordan there. So sorry for the unexpected jump in the video there. I of course, you did actually hear it at the top of the program, but amazing to know that, of course, we did actually make a mistake at the end of the last episode, saying that that was the, I think, the first podium in his entire career in Formula One history for Rubens Barrichello. But once again, we did actually see him take third place at the British Grand Prix at Silverstone earlier on in the year, and once again, a great result there for, of course, Rubens Barrichello, and both drivers have been doing really well this season. I know that that's actually they've had 2 podiums so far, one courtesy of an amazing race victory at the Portuguese Grand Prix in Estoril for, of course, Eddie Irvine, his first once again race victory in his Formula One career, and once again that as we can get to straight to before we get to what happened in practice and qualifying, we also have got an update also for some driver changes, because as you might not know, if you did not know already, there is also talk of that one of the main ones in particular is that the new Danish driver Jan Magnussen is going to set to replace Mika Hakkinen, as he is expected to have an operation for appendicitis, and he will miss this particular race, but it'll be interesting to see what the young Dane can do. And just to remind you, if as some of you do not know, of course, for most of his racing career, we do know that back last year in 1994, he is of course the current British Formula 3 champion with the team of Paul Stewart Racing, and he won 14 of the 18 races, and breaking the record previously set by the late Brazilian of Ayrton Senna. And he also won his and scored his first British Formula 3 win in April at Donington Park, and also taking pole position for that particular race. Also, he also has won at Brands Hatch and twice at Silverstone, and also at Thruxton. And he won 6 of the first 8 races, and then once again he also won back at Donington Park. Also, I think it was at both the National and also the Grand Prix circuit that once again also hosted previously the 1993 European Grand Prix, where unbelievably the late Ayrton Senna also won a very, of course, in a dominant way in the rain-soaked, of course, Grand Prix circuit at Donington in his McLaren. Of course, I think powered. I think it was the last time that Honda engines were used before they got replaced by Peugeot from last year also as well. But this is his Formula One debut. We do know that he is the first Danish driver to, of course, take part in Formula One since Tom Belso back in 1974. So it's interesting to know that he is going to be replacing the Finnish driver for, once again, his operation that he had just quite recently. So that's very exciting to see that. And also, just to remind you, we also can remind you that the Japanese driver Yukio Katayama is returning after his unexpected, of course, near dangerous accident following a strained neck injury that he picked up for a few days after colliding with Italian Luca Badoa's Minardi right at the start of the race also as well. Because he had to miss the European Grand Prix due to that injury, and he is set to replace once again the Italian Gabriele Tarquini, who was in, of course, his place for while he was being treated in hospital. But also, fellow Italian driver Gianni Morbidelli is set to replace fellow Italian driver of Massimiliano Max Parpis also as well. since he has been driving for the team in his place while he had been away from, I think, also taking part in other championships, I think, to my knowledge. And while it's Pacific, also the Swiss driver Jean-Denis Delatraz, who amazingly finished in the top 10 in the last race, is of course being replaced by the French driver who was right at the team, right at the beginning, of Bertrand Gachot, and of course having both men driven for that particular team at the start of the season. And it was interesting to know that we have found out also he has been replaced, and he was being replaced as he was not he had not made agreed payments, installments to, of course, the Pacific team for the privilege of the drive, for him being a pay driver. And interesting to know that they intended to run the local Japanese driver Katsumi Yamamoto in place of Delatraz, but he had not been granted his FIA super license before then, so Gachot is going to retake his seat instead. But it's also that the 40 Course Sport team have also had plans to also replace the Brazilian Roberto Marino with Hideki Noda, who came to naught for the same reason of also not taking part in Formula 1 as well. But we do know that even though, despite him also taking part, of course, and racing for the Larousse team this time last year, it's unfortunate he has missed out on, of course, replacing Roberto Marino for that particular race weekend. But also we do know that there has been talks also as well with the practice and qualifying as we get to that, and we'll give you a rundown of the starting grid very, very shortly of what the situation is regarding that. But we do know that the weather conditions were dry throughout, and Michael Schumacher set the fastest lap time in the first session of 1 minute 16.057, which is 0.3 of a second quicker than the Williams drivers of Damon Hill and David Coulthard in second and third place respectively, while the Ferrari drivers of 4th and 5th for both Gerhard Berger ahead of Jean Alesi, and Mark Blundell of the McLaren Mercedes team rounding off the top 6 in 6th place, while David Coulthard managed to lap faster than Schumacher in the second practice session with a time of 1 minute 15.730 hundredths of a second, while Hill was second in his Williams, 0.3 of a second behind his teammate, Scottish teammate, and Eddie Irvine, amazingly, in his Jordan car also was 4th and 0.7 behind David, along with he was split by the Ferrari cars, who were 3rd and 5th, with Alesi being in front of Berger, and the Benetton drivers were 6th and 7th, with Schumacher in front of his British teammate of Johnny Herbert, and also Heinz-Harald Frentzen and Jean-Christophe Bouillon, the drivers for the Red Bull Sauber Ford team, were 8th and 10th in their cars respectively, with Rubens Barrichello in 9th in his Jordan with 2 seconds off the pace of the other drivers. And we also do know, we can also confirm as well, on the topic of that, we've heard more news regarding the medical situation with Karl Wendiger, the Austrian driver who was racing with, of course, the Sauber team right at the start of the season, and we do know that he is set to return to the next race, so this will be the last time that Jean-Christophe Bouillon, even though he's had some amazing unexpected points finishes for this year in for the team, he is going to be replaced back with Karl Wendiger, who you might remember, of course, remarkably managed to finish 3rd. Oh, excuse me. As I swallow an unexpected air pocket there, and we do know that he amazingly took 3rd place alongside Nigel Mansell in his McLaren, and also Michael Schumacher in his Benetton at the Spanish Grand Prix in Catalonia and Barcelona. But we do know that as we get back to the practice and qualifying results, we can go straight on to once again the qualifying results from the 2 1-hour sessions that happened on Friday afternoon and as of yesterday afternoon on Saturday. And we do know that, amazingly, David Coulthard managed to clinch his 4th consecutive pole position in his Williams with a time of 1 minute 14.013 hundredths of a second. And he is joined by, once again, his teammate of Damon Hill. Another 1-2 start, of course, the Williams team. Another great result there. And I'm sure Frank Williams was very impressed with that performance indeed. And we do know that, unfortunately, due to the, even though he has raced here once before, unfortunately, he did struggle, unfortunately, Michael Schumacher, in his Benetton, Renault-powered Benetton, and he could only manage to get, I think it was, to my knowledge, I think it's on our screen right now, of only 9th place, unfortunately, but he is going to be starting alongside the Brazilian Rubens Barrichello in his Jordan Peugeot, so it's going to be quite a challenge for the German, but we do know that he has been qualified further down the order in previous races, and we know that the Benetton is the fastest car on the grid so far, but it's very almost even alongside with the likes of the Williams, and we do know that amazing, great qualifying also for the likes of Olivier Panis in the Ligier, who also starts ahead of Schumacher, so in 8th place, and also Heinz-Harald Frentzen in his Sauber in 7th as well. So very interesting to know that. And of course, the Danish, Kevin, not Kevin Magnussen, but we do know that's, of course, his father's name. We do know that outside of the Jackpot Button Lewis universe and in this series, we do know he would go on to be a future driver. But we do know that he is, of course, will be watching on his young son taking part in his first ever Formula 1 race. And we can also confirm that his last run, we do know that it's interesting to know that he's still been looking really good regarding the downforce on his car for, of course, even though he'd only qualified 9th there. And it's interesting to know that, of course, David Coulthard has also been given the additional set of slick tyres, meaning that out of the allocation of 7 sets of slick tyres as set out by the FIA, he has only got 2 sets of brand new rubber for the race, while Schumacher has got the advantage of 3 sets of tyres, which will come in handy for, of course, the 83 lap race distance. And we do know that also Damon Hill is also quite concerned from starting on the dirty side of the track, which is the side of the track, once again, which is opposite to the racing line of the circuit, and he only has 2 sets also of brand new tyres for the race as well. But we do know that Gerhard Berger in his Ferrari has took 4th place, despite going off into the gravel trap late on in the second part, the second qualifying session. And also Gerhard Berger's French teammate John Lacey is 5th. And once again, an amazing qualifying session, as I said, from Northern Irishman Eddie Irvine in his Jordan, of course, Peugeot-powered Jordan Grand Prix car, completing the top 6. And 2 places behind his British teammate there for the rookie of Danish Jan Magnussen. And after not making a mistake in either of the 2 sessions, Mark Blundell managed to qualify in 14th. And we also have got the likes of returning drivers also. We do know that I completely forgot to say that also Martin Brundle is being replaced by the Japanese Aguri Suzuki, and he is also managed to qualify quite well up the grid. But with that being said, I think we're going to leave it there and get straight on to the full extended race highlights of round 15 of the 1995 FIA Formula 1 World Championship, as we give you, of course, full extended race highlights of course, the 1995 Pacific Grand Prix here at TI Circuit Aida. And, of course, it's now time for me to hand over to the commentary box to join, once again, the legendary voice of Formula 1 himself, Murray Walker, for the race. And with that being said, as I've just said, here is the official full race starting grid for round 15 of the 1995 FIA revised Formula One World Championship as we have the 1995 Pacific Grand Prix here from TI Circuit Aida. Here is the starting grid for round 15 of the 1995 FIA Formula One World Championship with the Pacific Grand Prix. And starting on pole position for the fourth time consecutively this season is Scotsman David Coulthard in his Williams. His English teammate Damon Hill is in second, with John Alesi and Gerhard Berger, the two Ferraris, in third and fourth. Fifth is Eddie Irvine in the first of the Jordans, with Johnny Herbert in sixth of the first of the Benettons. Heinz-Harald Frentzen in his Sauber is seventh, with Olivier Panis in eighth in his Ligier. An unexpected ninth place for Michael Schumacher, with Rubens Barrichello in the second of the Jordans in 10th. Mark Blundell and the young Danish rookie Jan Magnussen start 11th and 13th. Aguri Suzuki returns in 13th, with Pedro Lamy in the first of Minardis in 14th. Bouillon is 15th, with Luca Badoa in 16th. The injured Katayama returns from 17th, and with his teammates who finish Mika Salo, 19th, Gianni Morbidelli in the first of the Footwork Hearts, with his Japanese teammate Taki Inoue in 20th. Deniz is 21st, with Roberto Marino in 22nd, and the drivers of Andrea Montemini and Bertrand Gachot returning in the Pacific Ford start from the back of the grid.
Here we are at the secluded Aida circuit for the Pacific Grand Prix.
FIA Formula One World Championship. Round 15. The 1995 Pacific Grand Prix. From TI Circuit Aida. And now, to take you through all 83 laps of this year's 1995 Pacific Grand Prix here from TI Circuit Aida in Japan, it's now time to hand you over to our official race commentators. First of all, Jack Wright, then as always followed by the legendary voice of Formula One himself, Mr. Murray Walker OBE. Well, as the sun is beating down over once again the circuit of Aida here once again in Japan, but more specifically here in, of course, the first of two visits in the country for, once again, this is being the second Pacific Grand Prix since the inaugural one from this time last year in 1994. In the month of April, and as all 24 drivers are now going around the circuit on the formation lap, and the pressure is really on for the German of Michael Schumacher. Unfortunately, as we said earlier on, he did struggle in qualifying, when only qualifying in 9th place. We do know that this track, of course, is very tight in places, and there is not much, of course, the parts of the circuit are quite narrow, and we did actually find out that from the team that even though Johnny Herbert did manage to do better than, of course, his German teammate, he did struggle with the narrowness of the circuit and going off on, of course, the runoffs of with the grass and the occasional gravel trap. But luckily, he hasn't managed to beach the car and cause any damage to the, once again, the B195 chassis. But we do know, once again, another great 1-2 start for the Williams British duo drivers of, once again, again, David Coulthard taking his consecutive fourth, of course, pole position of this year, along with his British teammate of Damon Hill starting in second. And a great free-fall once again for the Ferrari drivers of Jean Alesi and Gerhard Berger. And another great, of course, fifth place there for Northern Irishman Eddie Irvine in his Jordan. And then once again we have Johnny Herbert there, of course, once again Schumacher's teammate in sixth place, and Heinz-Harald Frentzen in his Sauber Ford in seventh. And another great start also for the Frenchman, fellow Frenchman of Olivier Panis in his Ligier Mugen Honda in 8th place, just ahead of Schumacher, and starting ahead of Brazilian Rubens Barrichello in the other Jordan Peugeot. So, and of course, this is the longest race distance out of all the other races so far this season, but we do know this is a lot more shorter track than Monaco was, of course, at Monte Carlo, the Circuit de Monaco from earlier on this year. But it's going to be very interesting because, like I said, this track has got several short straights with loads of fast, sweeping and quite tight corners as well. So it might actually affect also the tyre wear of the tyres on all of the cars. So we could be expecting maybe 2 or 3 pit stops throughout the 83 lap race distance. But Michael Schumacher needs to get another podium finish here to try and put the pressure on the Scotsman David Coulthard, continuing his lead just by a narrow 1 point in the Drivers' Championship. So this one is definitely going to be a must watch. So all of you Formula One fans out there, I hope you're ready, because once again here on Jackpot Button Lewis Productions, exclusively live here on YouTube, it's time now for round 15 of the 1995 Reimagined FIA Formula One World Championship, as we bring you full extended race highlights of this year's 1995 Pacific Grand Prix here from TI Circuit Aida. Hopefully I won't lose my voice on this particular race, because I know that I've been recently suffering with a sore throat, so I won't have to be shouting over you, Murray. I'm going to have to sound a bit like how Martin Brundle would have sounded. Oh, I almost sound a bit like the late James Hunt, actually. Yeah, I'm going to sound very, I'm going to sound quite different to how I would normally sound. But I hope it won't disappoint us, though. Of course, it won't get in the way of us having a good race here today. So I'm sure we're certainly in for a treat here, Murray. Really looking forward to this race.
Watch for the lights. Watch for the green. Go! Flag out now. That's putting down the place. Look at that! It's a great start. He's a bit off the pace there. There was definitely contact between the two cars. Look at that!
Well, out of nowhere, that was a very undeserved collision there. I think that was from the Danish rookie there, Jan Magnussen. They just literally brake-checked each other going through the track for the last few corners there. And I think that was some unsportsmanlike behaviour warnings issued there, but we don't know which drivers would have received them. But I think Jan Magnussen has only just done 1 lap in his first Formula One race in his career.
Olivier Panis. 11. Michael Schumacher. 12. Mark Blondell.
But he's already been gifted an unsportsmanlike behaviour warning from race control.
And the gap is closing. That's taking him up a position.
He's finally passed Olivier Panis's Ligier. Back up into 10th place. He did have a slow start, but now, since this is a very long race to come,
Be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car.
We do know that, of course, he's got plenty of time to get back into this race. Well, actually, to correct myself there, Murray, that actually was...
The race leader, Damon Hill. In second place, Gerhard Berger. Third, David Coulthard. In fourth, Johnny Herbert. In fifth place, Jean Alesi. In sixth position, Eddie Irvine.
Actually, Mark Blundell made contact with Schumacher there,
He's closing the gap.
but Jan Magnussen might have been involved in a collision with Schumacher on the first lap. But Damon Hill is currently leading the 1995 Pacific Grand Prix. A poor start there for David Coulthard, who's currently down into fourth place at the moment. And it looks like
He's growing.
Magnussen has just overtaken.
Benson, 10. Michael Schumacher, 11. Mark Blundell.
If you let me finish there, Murray, I was just about to say Heinz Frenzen's name there, as he's been overtaken once again by the rookie Danishman.
Really right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time.
We'll make that, of course, Dane, as that's the nickname for the people of Denmark there. There, Murray, if you did not know.
And the gap is closing. He's right up tight behind him, pushing hard.
A nice little battle here between fellow German drivers at the moment. Berger is second, Coulthard now moves back up to third, Herbert fourth,
Bit off the pace there.
Alesi fifth.
Order. In first, Damon Hill. Second, Gerhard Berger. In third place, David Coulthard. In fourth, Johnny Herbert. In fifth position, John Alesi. In sixth, Rubens Barrichello.
And it looks like Blundell is starting to catch up with Schumacher. He needs to be careful, he's already been given a warning for unsportsmanlike behaviour. And Damon Hill sets the fastest lap, a 1 minute 16.910 hundredths of a second. As 79 laps are remaining.
Heinz Frenzen. They're really right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time. 10. Michael Schumacher. 11. Mark Blundell.
Of this year's 1995 Pacific Grand Prix, here from TI Circuit Aida. He is getting closer once again to Frenzen every single lap. And now here's a chance for him to take ninth place.
Unbelievable! There was definitely contact between the two cars.
Well, that was very undeserving there. That was a very aggressive, of course, block there from Frenzen, and that's an unsportsmanlike behaviour for him.
First, Damon Hill. In second, Gerhard Berger. In third place, John Alesi. In fourth position, David Coulthard. In fifth, Johnny Herbert. Sixth, Jan Magnussen.
That's incredible. I can't believe he's now up to sixth place. The young Dane, in only his first Grand Prix race at the moment in his Marlboro McLaren Mercedes. And here comes Blundell.
He's been overtaken.
And out out of nowhere. Mark Blundell in the second of the McLaren Mercedes has overtaken Schumacher.
He's pushing it to the limit all the time.
Well, I bet he had been pushing himself to the limit there, Murray. Because now Schumacher is down in 11th now. This is not looking good for the current world champion.
11. Michael Schumacher. 12. Jean-Christophe Pouliot.
Schumacher needs to maintain with these cars. If he has any chance of scoring points here this afternoon, that will make it all important in the Drivers' Championship. As long as he can have another podium finish to close the gap on David Coulthard, his chance of securing and defending his current
He's
World
losing ground.
Formula One World Drivers' title for a second consecutive year.
First, Damon Hill. In second position, Gerhard Berger. In third place, John Alesi. In fourth, David Coulthard. In fifth position, Johnny Herbert. In sixth place, Jan Magnussen.
He's almost wheel to wheel with Frentzen again.
Right underneath the rear wing of the car in front.
He's having one hell of a battle with Heinz-Harald Frentzen in his Sauber Ford at the moment, Schumacher. But he still can't find a way past yet. And there's only a small gap between the next few cars above him that are staying within the top 10 at the moment.
10. Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Hang on. 11. Michael Schumacher. 12. Jean-Christophe Pouliot.
And I think he's done it again, Murray. I think he's just brake-checked Schumacher, Frentzen. And that's another unsportsmanlike behaviour warning. One more and he could be facing the black flag and being disqualified.
He's closing the gap. Superlative. He's right underneath the rear wing of the car in front.
He's still got enough speed over that Sauber, but it feels like that the car can still make up for it grip-wise in the tight and twisty corners.
In first place, Damon Hill. In second position, Gerhard Berger. In third, John Alesi. It's not enough to be lucky. You've got to be good. And he is that. Fourth, David Coulthard. In fifth position, Johnny Herbert. In sixth place, Jan Magnussen.
Schumacher is still stuck behind Frentzen Sauber, but he's trying everything he can to get past him. Apologies, I had to clear my throat there. The remnants of my sore throat is coming back here, unfortunately, Murray. My apologies. Another fastest lap there for Damon Hill, 1 minute 16.
Heinz-Harald Frentzen. 11. Michael Schumacher.
774.
Christophe Pouliot.
774 hundredths of a second. Sorry to interrupt you again there, Murray. He's right between both the Swiss team cars, who are making it very difficult at the moment for the young fellow German driver. But Frentzen needs to be cautious here. He goes for a move, and he now makes it stick this time.
He must be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car.
Well, I wouldn't just say that, but
The race leader, Damon Hill. In second place, Gerhard Berger. In third, John Alesi. In fourth place, Johnny Herbert. In fifth position, David Coulthard. Sixth, Rubens Barrichello.
Murray, but he's really now catching up with Mark Blundell's McLaren now, and also they catch up with the back markers as he's managed to overtake past Rubens Barrichello's Jordan.
The gap is growing.
He finds a gap.
He forces his way through.
He had to avoid that there was a blue flag as well. And they managed to lap the slower cars as they were catching up with Roberto Marino's 40.
8th, Mark Blundell. 9th, Michael Schumacher. 10th, Eddie Irvine.
They're almost wheel to wheel.
You can see visually just how small the gap is.
We've seen some real battles on the track this afternoon, has to be said, Murray. Oh, no! Oh!
That was almost certainly a collision there. The gap is growing.
And I don't know if that might have been Heinz-Held Frentzen or Jean-Christophe Bouillon, but there was definitely made contact again as he had to back out at the last minute. Careless driving from either driver, but we don't know who that was, so if that was Heinz...
Damon Hill, John Alesi, Gerhard Berger, Johnny Herbert.
If that was Heinz-Held Frentzen, I think he could be facing a disqualification because that's the final warning given to him right now. But if it isn't, that would be the first one to Bouillon. He's now finally making a move on Eddie Irvine's Jordan now.
Take a lot of time there. Unbelievable. He's right underneath the rear wing of the car in front. That's moved him up a place.
Whoa!
He's a bit off the pace there.
And he just flew round those corners, and now he's finally passed Mark Blundell's McLaren now. And to correct myself, I didn't realise that was actually Eddie Irvine, not Rubens Barrichello, who was...
7th, Jan Magnussen. 8th, Michael Schumacher. 9th, Mark Blundell.
in 10th place from earlier on in the last lap.
Must be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car.
Damon Hill starts lap 13 out of 83 of this afternoon's 1995 Pacific Grand Prix here from TI Circuit Aida. Apologies for
And the gap is closing.
once again clearing my throat. I am being mindful of it, everybody. I know it's very unfortunate that we had to do this edition of Grand Prix Formula 1 when I am still got remnants of a sore throat. Oh my goodness. Schumacher's...
Order. Damon Hill, Gerhard Berger, Jean Alesi, David Coulthard.
He's desperate to get past the back markers. He's about to approach, I think that's Mika Salo's Tyrrell. Or that might...
Is increasing.
Or it might be the recently returned Yukio Katayama. But he's now 3.1 seconds to Jan Magnussen, who was in 6th place, but he's gone down now to 7th. Hill still leads with Berger second, Alesi third, David Coulthard in fourth, Herbert in fifth, and Rubens Barrichello rounding off
He's definitely gaining.
the top six at the present moment.
It's not enough to be lucky. You've got to be good. And he is that. 7. Jan Magnussen. 8. Michael Schumacher. 9. Eddie Irvine.
And that's past Andrea Montemini's Pacific.
He's losing ground.
It looks like Magnussen's starting to catch up with back markers here again. The young Danish rookie is
Race order. Damon Hill. Gerhard Berger. John Alesi. David Coulthard.
is in quite the vulnerable position at the moment. And I think he's managed to overtake past Rubens Barrichello, who's been caught up behind one of the back markers. Oh, and he's made contact.
Losing ground.
I don't know if that was him or that could have been Taki Inoue, I think.
That's moved him up a place.
I think it might have been, so he's been given, since he actually made the initial contact on Barrichello.
Pace there. They're really right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time.
That's another unsportsmanlike behaviour warning, but given now to Taki Inoue in his footwork heart this time.
Michael Schumacher. 8. Rubens Barrichello. And the gap is closing.
Hill is leading Gerhard Berger by 6 seconds, while there's a 10-second gap between him and his French Ferrari teammate, John Alesi.
The gap is growing. Race order. Damon Hill. Gerhard Berger. John Alesi. David Coulthard.
Schumacher is really starting to catch up on the rookie Danish driver now. But you've got to hand it to him. It's only his first race in Formula One.
To be lucky, you've got to be good. And he is that. And he's gained a lot of time now.
He has, Murray, and it's now down to 1.907 hundredths of a second now.
Michael Schumacher. 8. Rubens Barrichello.
He just caught a bit of the grass, but luckily he kept the car under control and on the tarmac. Oh my goodness. Now this could really hurt I was going to say Verstappen, but Jos Verstappen's not taking part in this race as he already has been ousted from the team Simtech that went out due to bankruptcy earlier on this season. I meant to say
Losing ground.
Magnussen, oh my goodness! A real mix-up with the back markers, and since how narrow the circuit is, it's making it really hard to even catching some of the faster drivers out. This is a real challenge for the German to even try and...
Damon Hill, Gerhard Berger, Johnny Herbert, David Coulthard.
trying to get through the traffic as quickly as possible.
The gap is increasing.
But Jean Alesi is now down to 6th place. And I feel like that Schumacher is about to make a move on Parnis's Ligier. My goodness, what an overtake! He was really slow going through there and impressively overtaking him on the outside of those corners. And now Michael Schumacher has set the fastest lap time, a new lap record of 1 minute 16.639 hundredths of a second.
Michael Schumacher. 8. Rubens Barrichello. He's losing ground.
And there's a blue flag waved to Gianni Morbidelli. He needs to let Schumacher pass, which he already is overtaking him with ease.
He's a bit off the pace there.
Not by much, Murray. He's still catching up with the Ferrari of Jean Alesi, who unbelievably has dropped from 2nd down to 6th place. And he's just 1 position away, Schumacher, from getting into
Young man really is a superlative driver.
the championship points. He goes for a move, and he's got him.
Wait a minute. If he can keep his place, he'll finish in the points. Race order. Damon Hill. Gerhard Berger. Johnny Herbert. David Coulthard.
Finally, Schumacher is back into the top 6. Even though that's the first time it's happened in this afternoon's race, but the points are going to be all important as long as he can finish ahead of David Coulthard. He can still close the gap to him, who's currently, once again, still leading by 1 single point in the current 1995 World Drivers' Championship table at the moment. Magnussen has moved up to 5th. I have to say, Murray, even though this is his first time in Formula One, I think from what he's shown to us so far, I think he's got a lot of potential going into later seasons.
He's definitely gaining.
He may not be a race winner just yet, but we do know that he's already the reigning British Formula 3 champion.
It's not enough to be lucky. You've got to be good. And he is that.
You're right there, Murray. Well, even though it was a challenging start for Schumacher right at the beginning, at least he's managed to maintain a gap to the front runners. And he needs to have a good result here this afternoon if he can amazingly go on to win this race.
Damon Hill, Gerhard Berger, Johnny Herbert, David Coulthard.
In the current championship situation, if David Coulthard finishes in 4th place, he will only get 3 points, while Schumacher will overtake the lead in the Drivers' Championship. And we also forgot to say that since this is a tough circuit on the tyres for all the drivers, they may be doing 2 to 3 pit stops. Oh, and there's contact! I think that might have been... I don't know who that was, but if that was the 5th place driver, that being David Coulthard, yes! It was David Coulthard. He actually made contact on the young Dane there. So that's also an unsportsmanlike behaviour for the Scotsman. Well, it's nice to have dry weather conditions here. And I hope that we have that for the remainder of this season with the last 2 races. Next time out, staying in Japan, but to the ever so popular Suzuka circuit for round 16. Here's a chance now for Jan Magnussen to try and hold off the current world champion, but Schumacher just backs out of the first corner at the last. He's still with him. Oh, and there's more contact.
Gerhard Berger, Johnny Herbert, David Coulthard.
I can't believe he's done it again, and that's another warning. The current championship leader is in danger of possibly being disqualified from this race. What on earth is he doing? He must be mad to do this right now at such an important race in this year's Reimagined 1995 Formula 1 season. Oh, he really rode over the curbs there.
That's taken him up a position.
But Schumacher is past now.
And he's gained a lot of time there. He must be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car.
Well, I don't think just that there, Murray, but I think he's definitely got a sweat on because he is literally pushing his whole heart and body to the limit here. Apologies for clearing my throat there again, everybody. Now Schumacher is just behind David Coulthard. This could be all important for the championship now. Damon Hill, his English teammate, still leads as he starts lap 25. Oh, he just goes wide onto the grass on the curb, but luckily keeps the car under control. He's done it again on the last corner, but once again keeps the car under control.
Gerhard Berger, Johnny Herbert, David Coulthard.
And with all that happening, we've also just heard from a few laps ago, Michael Schumacher will be coming in for his first pit stop on lap 28. And he's doing a two-stop strategy. And he's hoping to come in about halfway through the race, which will be around lap 41, even though half of the lap race distance
Must be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car.
comes to 41.5 or 41.5 is that race distance. Oh! There was nearly contact there from, I think,
Taking him up a position.
Pedro Diniz, but he is now past Coulthard. As Pedro Diniz was holding off Coulthard, but I'm sure he'll need to let him pass because he's been waving a blue flag from the marshals.
He's closing the gap.
Now these two pit stops that Schumacher's going to have in today's race are going to be all important, because especially for the hold-up he had right at the beginning of the race, he needs to time these perfectly And maybe he could even attempt an undercut here. And he's trying to close the gap now of 19 seconds to current race leader Damon Hill. And once again, Schumacher's current championship rival. But the Williams team and also Benetton have had a...
Damon Hill, Gerhard Berger, Johnny Herbert, Michael Schumacher.
Both teams have had a brilliant race so far. And yes, I think some...
Not enough to be lucky, you've got to be good. And he used that. And he's gained a lot of time there.
I think some drivers are about to come in for their first pit stop. Schumacher is going to go a little bit more earlier than some others, I think, but I think this is going to make it all important so he can maintain track position as he's about to approach his English teammate Johnny Herbert. But he is yet to pit so far, so Schumacher will be the first of the Benetton cars to come in for his first pit stop of this afternoon's Pacific Grand Prix. Now we know he did get some unexpected contact on his front wing as well as rear wing, so it'll be interesting to see what the mechanics can do as he comes in for his first pit stop. In comes Michael Schumacher now from 4th place.
He's coming in for fuel and a fresh set of tires.
Ward is 50% on his front wing, so that needs to be replaced. A top up of fuel.
Unbelievable. That's a slow one.
It may be Murray, but he had a heavy fuel load there, and that was 50% damage on his front wing, so that it's a good job he had to have that one replaced.
Damon Hill, Gerhard Berger, Johnny Herbert, David Coulthard.
So as you just said, Murray, he's now dropped back now to 10th place because of that 15-second pit stop, but now
Losing ground.
his car has been mostly repaired. He only got 6% damage on his rear wing, so that won't affect him too much. So at least he's came in, especially because he was getting low on fuel also as well. So that was a good call to bring him in that early.
Jean-Christophe Gouliot. 10th. Michael Schumacher. 11th. Eddie Irvine. And he's gained a lot of time there.
Well, he's starting to catch up with Jean-Christophe Gouliot in his Sauber. Once again, this will be his final race for the team, as he will be replaced by Austrian Karl Wendlinger in the next race.
The gap is closing.
As he now approaches, I think that's...
He must be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car.
I think that's Mika Salo's Tyrrell. And he gets past him with no trouble at all. And Hill is now leading by 50 seconds.
Damon Hill, Johnny Herbert, Gerhard Berger, David Coulthard.
He just catches the grass again. But he's still keeping
He's definitely gaining.
the car under control. Yeah, absolutely right, Murray. from 5.6 seconds is now down to 3.4 seconds as 53 laps are remaining of this year's Pacific Grand Prix here from TI Circuit Aida.
And he's gained a lot of time there.
Hill leads from Gerhard Berger in second, Herbert third, David Coulthard still is in fourth place, with Jan Magnussen in fifth place. And I think that might have been Jean Alesi.
Jean-Christophe Pouliot. 10. Michael Schumacher.
Who currently rounds out.
Eddie Irvine.
Sorry to interrupt you there, Murray. Once again.
He must be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car.
I mean, you've been saying that quite a lot already this afternoon, Murray. How many more times are you going to say that just to prove it?
And the gap is closing.
But since the back markers are slowing him down now a few, he's right behind Bullion's Sauber Ford right now.
Race order. Damon Hill, Johnny Herbert, Gerhard Berger, David Coulthard.
Oh my goodness! Oh, and there's contact! I think that was, it was one of the footwork carts who made a contact with that Pacific Ford just ahead. But we don't know who that was. But there was definitely an unsportsmanlike behaviour warning issued for that contact. That looked like Taki Inoue, so he's on a second warning now as he made contact with the Italian Andrea Montemini.
9. Jean-Christophe Pouliot. It's not enough to be lucky. You've got to be good. And he is that. 10. Michael Schumacher. 11. Eddie Irvine.
As Hill is currently leading Berger by 16 seconds. And once again, Schumacher is finally past Jean-Christophe Bourgnon Sauber into 8th place. Well, my apologies, that was actually 10th, actually. Because I thought that the back markers obviously were getting in the way of
Damon Hill, Johnny Herbert, Gerhard Berger, David Coulthard. He's definitely gaining.
the top 10 drivers. I think that might have been Frentzen then if he overtook him earlier. Who's further down the order. As we've already...
And the gap is closing.
I've already gone way past a quarter of the race distance and we already are now starting to approach almost halfway through the 83 official lap race distance of this year's Pacific Grand Prix here from
He must be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car.
Aida. And now Damon Hill has broken the minute barrier of 1 minute 3 seconds. Lead to, once again, Michael Schumacher.
9. Jean-Christophe Pouliot. 10. Michael Schumacher. 11. Eddie Irvine. He's closing the gap.
Excuse me once again as I clear my throat, everybody.
A lot of time there.
And that's past, I think, Taki Inue's footwork again.
The gap is growing. Race order. Damon Hill, Johnny Herbert, Gerhard Berger, David Coulthard.
Oh, and there was contact again. I don't know if that might have been from Jan Magnussen there. If that was from him. Or even Blundell. I feel like he could maybe on the threat of disqualification from this race.
Under conditions, the gap is increasing.
Oh, and he's made contact again with the 40 course Ford of Diniz, I think that was. Oh no, it was Roberto Marino. We just saw a flash of his yellow helmet.
Schumacher. 11. Eddie Irvine.
Well, there you go. That's official. We found out that since he already had 2 warnings, Mark Blundell has officially got a 3rd and last warning. And that means he is officially now going to be... Oh, as Schumacher skids on the curbs there at that last corner. But Mark Blundell is officially going to be black flagged.
You've got to be good. And he is that.
And
Race order. Damon Hill, Johnny Herbert, Gerhard Berger, David Coulthard.
And if you had let me finish what I was going to say there, Murray, he is now officially disqualified. And he will...
Forces his way through. The gap is growing.
Regardless of where he finishes, he will be disqualified from the overall race classification at the end of this race. Very disappointing performance there from the British driver. It's unlike him, but it's just feeling like that the way he's controlled by the AI in this game, they have literally gone into almost overdrive here, which has really made it very frustrating.
8. Jean-Christophe Bouillon. 9. Michael Schumacher. 10. Mark Blundell. And he's gained a lot of time there. He's right underneath the rear wing of the car in front. Unbelievable! That's moved him up a place.
And that was a brilliant wheel-to-wheel battle there with, once again, Jean-Christophe Bouillon there in his
He's gained a lot of time there.
Sauber over Michael Schumacher. And he, once again, is back
Really right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time.
in 8th place.
Race order. Damon Hill, Johnny Herbert, Gerhard Berger, David Coulthard.
And Schumacher's next target is the Brazilian Rubens Barrichello, who's 17.7 seconds ahead in his Jordan Peugeot.
And the gap is closing.
Damon Hill still leads the 1995 Pacific Grand Prix.
The gap is increasing.
Herbert still in second. But has Gerhard Berger, is he still holding on to an all-important third place for Ferrari at the moment? We'll find out whenever we can.
7. Jan Magnussen. 8. Michael Schumacher. 9. Jean-Christophe Pouliot.
No, it's David Coulthard who's in third at the moment. Berger is in fourth as they drop down from third to fourth.
He's shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car.
And Alesi is in fifth.
Ouch! That was almost certainly a collision there.
It most certainly was, Murray.
He's gained a lot of time there.
And Luca Badoa impulsively just caught the front end of Schumacher there. Oh, and he just goes onto the grass, but luckily he doesn't spin out the car again.
And the gap is closing. Race order. Damon Hill, Johnny Herbert, David Coulthard, Gerhard Berger.
We currently have once again another British 1-2-3 podium finish as it stands at the moment, as we've had that already happen twice from earlier on this year. But this race once again is still far from over, everybody. I know that Schumacher wants to try and get back into this race. Barrichello rounds off the top 6 at the moment in his Jordan. A good drive from the Brazilian so far.
He's closing the gap. Jan Magnussen. He really loves these kind of conditions. 8. Michael Schumacher. 9. Jean-Christophe Pouliot. And the gap is closing.
He just nearly overshot the corner there, overtaking Riccardo Patrese, and he nearly went into the side of him there. That was very lucky for Michael there. But Schumacher is about to catch up once again with the Danish rookie again of Jan Magnussen taking over. Oh, and he's made contact with the Tyrrell of, I think that was of,
Order. Damon Hill, Johnny Herbert, David Coulthard, Gerhard Berger.
well, I don't know if that was Salo or Katayama. But we do know, I think he might be on his final warning if, I think we've lost count the amount of
Closing the gap.
collisions he's had. And it'd be such a shame for him to be disqualified in this race because he had a real good start right at the beginning of the race, and it would be absolutely...
Look at this! Look at this!
Well, that was unfortunate because Schumacher has now picked up on... Oh my goodness!
All the time.
And now the Ferrari of... I think that was...
I'm sure there was contact there. Oh dear! Oh dear!
And that was John Alesi in his Ferrari. He's made contact again for the first time in a few races, and that's an unsportsmanlike behaviour warning for him as well too. What on earth is going on with these drivers this afternoon? I have never seen anything like it for the first time in a while, Murray. Absolutely shameful. Well, it looks like I think Coulthard is pitted, unless... Oh! Now, who on earth was that?
David Coulthard, Gerhard Berger, Damon Hill, Johnny Herbert.
Who on earth was that just rear-ended Schumacher there? We need to find out, because that was absolutely despicable driving.
That's taken him up a position.
He's already gone into the pits, but
Anything happens in Grand Prix racing, and it usually does. And the gap is closing.
well, it looks like, I don't know if Magnussen is pitted there, but if we can maybe find out, maybe after the race,
He's closing the gap.
in just his first Formula 1 race, he could have been on for a points finish, but I feel like that could be all gone to waste if he's made too many contacts, made collisions with a few of the other drivers. He could face a disqualification in only his first Formula 1 Grand Prix race starts. But if Coulthard had just pitted earlier, Schumacher is now in 4th place and 10 seconds behind David Coulthard, the current championship leader.
Spectacular overtaking there.
Well, just out of nowhere. Speak of the devil, I feel like Coulthard's just pitted and he's dropped down to 5th now. Schumacher has now moved up to 3rd.
Gerhard Berger. Michael Schumacher. Jan Magnussen.
And Jan Magnussen is also
Buckets of adrenaline in that car.
currently in 4th place, but he could be under the threat, as we just said earlier on, of disqualification. So these pit stops have really started to close the gap now, as we saw now Damon Hill was leading by over a minute. Now it's slashed down to 20 seconds now. Now we don't know if Hill has pitted yet, but as Gerhard Berger is 7.5 seconds behind. And now Schumacher is 16.4 seconds, which is now down to 11.3 seconds.
He's closing the gap.
Well, it was only going to be a matter of time before Coulthard was going to come in. So he's currently in 5th place with only 2 points. So if Schumacher can stay on the podium, as long as he can, maybe, if he has got, since he's got fresh tyres and a heavy fuel load, he can burn off that fuel. That will take him to the end of this race, but he will need to pit again for more tyres, because this circuit has been quite... You're absolutely right, Murray. As I was going to say, he has had...
Damon Hill, Gerhard Berger, Michael Schumacher, Jan Magnussen.
one hell of a battle at this track today. And we've had another quite a chaotic race, it has to be said, as we have already gone past the halfway mark. And another bit of contact. I think that might have been from Heinz-Harald Frentzen. He should have let him pass there. That was very dirty driving there from the fellow German. And I think that's his second warning, so he could be on a final warning there. This is going to be absolutely crazy, regardless of who finishes. There's going to be a load of drivers who have picked up penalties throughout this afternoon's Pacific Grand Prix. So the final result could be literally totally unpredictable here. Still no change as Michael Schumacher still sets the fastest lap of the race. 1 minute.
He's definitely gaining.
16.639 hundredths of a second. And now he's only 7 seconds to Austrian Gerhard Berger and his Ferrari.
It's not enough to be lucky. You've got to be good. And he is that. He's losing ground.
Currently, David Coulthard is now behind by 1 lap in 6th place. It's a situation that the Scotsman didn't want to find himself in.
Race order. Damon Hill, Gerhard Berger, Michael Schumacher, Jan Magnussen.
But this is once again very promising for Michael Schumacher here, as he's hunting down his current championship rival, Britain's Damon Hill. As he starts lap 48, out of 83 of this year's 1995 Pacific Grand Prix.
And he's gained a lot of time there.
Now down to 4.1 seconds now.
He's definitely gaining.
And Jean-Christophe Bouillon has now overtaken David Coulthard, and now he's currently out of the points at the moment. This is huge for the Drivers' Championship as it stands. And there is, I think,
Buckets of adrenaline in that car.
as you say, for the umpteenth time, Murray, I think that's Gerhard Berger's Ferrari now. Oof. I think that was quite an unnecessary blocking maneuver there from, I think that might have been Bouillon or Frentzen in one of the Saubers.
He's closing the gap.
But now, Schumacher is only half a second, or just under a second, to Berger's Ferrari to take second place here.
Damon Hill, Gerhard Berger, Michael Schumacher, Jan Magnussen.
Schumacher's Benetton is literally right underneath the rear wing of that prancing horse. Oh, he's very slow there. He's looking vulnerable, the Austrian. Schumacher's just waiting for a gap. The Austrians under real pressure here to hold off the current world champion. But that Benetton has got a faster engine than the Ferrari.
Loves these kind of conditions. You can see visually just how small the gap is.
But Berger's just done enough to just eke out the narrowest of margins from Schumacher. This is incredible racing here, Murray. We couldn't be in a more better place to see this kind of race happen. And we hope that you are thoroughly enjoying it at home, all of you viewers out there here on Grand Prix Formula 1.
He's losing ground.
Ooh! And because of Him being slowed down. Oh, he's nearly gone wide again. He needs to get past. I think that's Hightail Fredson.
Oh my word! There was definitely contact between the two cars.
Yes, if that was definitely him.
Damon Hill, Gerhard Berger, Michael Schumacher, Jan Magnussen.
I think he's going to be... I didn't see his helmet, but it looked dark. If that was him, he is going to be the next driver to face a disqualification. He's had 3 unsportsmanlike behaviour contact warnings. This has been absolutely bonkers, this race. Some of these drivers are just driving
Must be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car.
quite in the insubordinate manner, it's got to be said. You'd never see this happen in real life, let me tell you that now. Yes!
Remarkable! He forces his way through.
And now Michael Schumacher has overtaken finally Gerhard Berger, and now has got an all-important second place. As he passes Mika Salo's Tyrrell. With 31 laps remaining of this year's and afternoon's 1995 Pacific Grand Prix here from TI Circuit Aida. There's a 36-second gap.
Damon Hill, Michael Schumacher, Gerhard Berger, Rubens Barrichello.
So there's currently 37 seconds.
They're really right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time.
And another pit stop is coming up, but at least we do know, hopefully, Schumacher might need to take a few risks if he has got damage on his front wing. He needs to be mindful of that. And I know he doesn't normally drive quite aggressively, but I feel like if he's got any chance of winning today, he needs to push hard and give it everything that his Benetton B195 chassis car can handle. Berger is third. Barrichello is fourth. Magnussen fifth. And Bouillon rounds off the top 6 at the moment.
Race order, Damon Hill, Michael Schumacher, Gerhard Berger, Rubens Barrichello.
Since David Coulthard
Is increasing.
is not in the top 6, if Schumacher stays where he does, even though he's going to come in for his second pit stop, he just needs to stay there and he will take the lead of the Drivers' Championship going into the last two races next time out. The Japanese Grand Prix at Suzuka, and then the championship finale at the Adelaide Street Circuit in Australia from next month in November.
He's a bit off the pace there.
He may have gone on for a little second. Oh, and it looked like he tried to cut the corner there, but he was trying to avoid one of the Pacifics. I think that was a bit of an unnecessary bit of corner cutting there from Schumacher, but he didn't want to avoid damage on his car.
Race order. Damon Hill, Michael Schumacher, Gerhard Berger, Rubens Barrichello.
In comes Schumacher.
I can't imagine what sort of a problem he's got.
Well, he's definitely having a few problems because his rear wing has nearly been taken off. 89%, so he's had to have both front wing and his rear wing changed.
Not a good stop there.
That was really unfortunate there.
He's been overtaken. And the gap is closing.
He drops back down to third, but at least now he's got a fixed car and now he's got tyres to go to the end of the race. The pressure, we do know that Schumacher has
The gap is increasing.
come back from an amazing gap of, I think it was almost about 30 seconds when he had that incredible duel with fellow world champion Nigel Mansell in his McLaren at the Spanish Grand Prix in Barcelona.
It's Schumacher. He's into the barriers.
And he's overshot, he just skidded on the curb of that corner and he just tagged the wall.
And really is a superlative driver.
That was really unfortunate, hopefully. And I can't believe that he's already made that mistake already. I think he just overshot it because I think his tyres were a little cold. They just need to warm up a little bit.
He's losing ground. Race order. Damon Hill, Gerhard Berger, Michael Schumacher, Rubens Barrichello.
He's currently 1 minute, 17 seconds now, Hill. And look at that! I think that's just him who's gone past. He's literally just lapped Schumacher now. That is unbelievable.
He's a bit off the pace there. Schumacher! He must have hit the barrier there.
And unbelievably, he's done the same thing on the exact same corner. He skidded on the curb and hit the same exact barrier. That is really unfortunate there for the German. He's having no problems with his tyres, but he just spun the car on the curbs and accidentally. Oh, goodness me, what is going on with Michael today?
You've got to be good. And he is that. The gap is growing.
But now, Gerhard Berger is currently in second place in his Ferrari. holding an all-important podium for Ferrari at the moment, but can he hold off Schumacher as he fights through the back markers for the umpteenth time in this race?
Race order. Damon Hill, Gerhard Berger, Michael Schumacher, Rubens Barrichello.
Hill starts lap 60 out of 83.
And the gap is closing.
That's quite remarkable how Damon Hill has managed to lap the entire field here. And we haven't seen that in a while.
He's closing the gap.
You have to go back, I think, to the San Marino Grand Prix.
It's not enough to be lucky. You've got to be good. And he is that. He's gained a lot of time now. He's definitely gaining. Race order. Damon Hill, Gerhard Berger, Michael Schumacher, Rubens Barrichello.
Great to see Rubens Barrichello is having an amazing drive in his Jordan this afternoon. But it feels like that since Berger is still in second place, even though Schumacher is getting closer and closer to the Austrian, he could still hold on for 4 points
Announce these kind of conditions.
to keep Ferrari ahead of Jordan in the Constructors' Championship. But I can see a little flash of red.
He's closing the gap.
Whoa! Oh, he nearly got sandwiched there by Minardi and Asalba. But Schumacher just got past narrowly. And there is now Gerhard Berger in second place.
Closing.
Once again. V12 power against V10 Renault powered against the Ferrari. And Schumacher is right up the rear wing of the Austrian again. Berger is in a very vulnerable position at the moment. He's got to do everything to stop.
Race order. Damon Hill, Gerhard Berger, Michael Schumacher, Rubens Barrichello. He's right underneath the rear wing of the car in front.
To stop Schumacher. Another brilliant battle here between both drivers.
He must be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car. Look at this! Look at this! That's taking him up a position, and the gap is closing.
Well, that was very dirty driving again from the Austrian. I felt like that Schumacher had Berger there, but he didn't want to give that place up at all. And that is a very, very
The pace there.
shameful bit of driving there, and he gets an unsportsmanlike behaviour warning for good measure as well. But despite that, now Michael Schumacher is back into second place now and trying to hopefully, even though it may seem impossible, but since he's now done his 2 pit stops and he's got under 20 laps to go, can Schumacher close that almighty gap to his championship rival
He's definitely gaining.
of Damon Hill? 1 minute 34 seconds. Man, that seems impossible, but as you have said many times on here, Murray, but you haven't actually said, not for a while, or you might have said it earlier on, anything can happen in Formula One, and it usually does.
The gap is increasing. They're really right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time. Race order. Damon Hill, Michael Schumacher, Gerhard Berger, Rubens Barrichello.
Few more drivers are doing their last pit stops of this afternoon's Grand Prix.
And he's gained a lot of time now.
Just to remind you, we know that Schumacher is already a lap behind. It's amazing how Damon Hill has managed to actually lap the whole entire field again, but not as dominant as he was. He did it by over 3 minutes at Imola in San Marino earlier on in the season.
He's losing ground. He's closing the gap. It's not enough to be lucky. You've got to be good. And he is that.
And even though we haven't had the chance to ride on board with Michael Schumacher, but now we finally have that opportunity, I'm sure we're going to see some
Damon Hill, Michael Schumacher, Gerhard Berger, Rubens Barrichello.
I'm sure we're going to see some very focused
He's a bit off the pace there.
and competitive driving from the German here. Well, I feel like that we have had absolutely everything that we certainly
To be lucky, you've got to be good. And he is that.
wasn't
He's losing ground.
wasn't expecting to see, Murray, as you let me finish. I have never seen that you'd be this talkative today, Murray. You can never shut up, can you? And that's not in a bad way, of course. No offence to you, don't get me wrong. Oh, and Schumacher just clutches the grass again. But he keeps the car under control.
Damon Hill, Michael Schumacher, Gerhard Berger, Rubens Barrichello.
Even though we're into the final quarter of this afternoon's Pacific Grand Prix here at Aida, it feels like it might be a foregone conclusion, the result here, but still, Schumacher is still in a very all-important position at the moment, even though if he doesn't go on to win this race, which is looking more likely now as we approach the last 10 laps, he will still lead the Drivers' Championship, as David Coulthard is not in the points in this particular race. Once again,
He must be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car.
he only managed to finish in 10th place last time out at the Nürburgring in the European Grand Prix. But I feel like it's almost going to go down to the final race like it was over a year ago here. There hasn't been that much dominance from most of the front runners, even though that David Coulthard has won the most races so far this season.
He's losing ground.
I feel like that Schumacher has, in certain races this season, as
Damon Hill, Michael Schumacher, Gerhard Berger, Rubens Barrichello.
has definitely been one of the closest drivers to compete alongside Michael Schumacher himself.
And he's gained a lot of time now.
And we do know that over the last few races he has been consistent with podium finishes, Damon, but this victory will put him right back into the championship. We already do know that if he managed
He
to
really loves these kind of conditions.
score points consistently, he may would be within half a chance of
He's closing the gap.
taking on his fellow championship rival like they did since last year in 1994 in quite the controversial way, but luckily this year we haven't seen a repeat of that, which is very good to see so far. But it's definitely not over for Michael here, because like I said, he will go into the last two races with an all-important, I think, 5-point lead over David Coulthard. But since Damon Hill is 13 points behind,
Race order. Damon Hill, Michael Schumacher, Gerhard Berger, Rubens Barrichello.
I feel like Schumacher might just do enough to retain the lead in the Drivers' Championship table. Oh! There was contact there from Riccardo Patrese on one of the Pacific Fords.
It's not enough to be lucky. You've got to be good. And he
Now he did go on the pit lane exit. That was a little bit controversial there. But there was nowhere else he could have gone because he didn't want to go onto the grass to spin out. So that could be, once again, questionable. I'm not sure if the stewards might look at that at the end of the race. The back markers have really been in places where we certainly weren't expecting them to be all through this afternoon's Pacific Grand Prix.
Buckets of adrenaline in that car. Race order: Damon Hill, Michael Schumacher, Gerhard Berger, Rubens Barrichello. He's closing the gap.
Yeah, well, he's still behind by 1 lap, so I feel like as we go into the final 10 laps, I think Damon Hill has definitely got this race in the bag unless an unexpected engine failure would happen. But the reliability of the Renault engines for both Williams and also Benetton, we haven't yet to see a retirement from either of their drivers. Make that, of course, Schumacher, Hill, Coulthard or Herbert. But despite the unexpected mayhem we've had here,
He's definitely gaining.
in, of course, here in the Pacific areas,
They're really right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time.
in the land of the rising sun, we still have had quite the eventful but definitely exciting Grand Prix.
Race order: Damon Hill, Michael Schumacher, Gerhard Berger, Rubens Barrichello.
It just would have been nice to see a little bit more cleaner racing than what we've had to unfortunately witness as of this afternoon. Whoa, that was close. That came out of nowhere. Whoa, he nearly rear-ended a Pacific there. We were just seeing Schumacher overtake that McLaren and Minardi. I think that was of Lamy and I think that might have been Blundell.
The gap is growing. This young man really is a superlative driver. Race order: Damon Hill, Michael Schumacher, Gerhard Berger, Rubens Barrichello. The gap is increasing.
Well, as apologies for the long silence there. I know it was only just Murray commentating there, but I'm just being a little mindful of my throat. It's definitely started to clear up a little bit. I know I wasn't expecting
He really loves these kind of conditions.
to be clearing my throat as often as I would have liked to have done here on this edition of Grand Prix Formula 1. But even though that I have been on thorough medication, it still unfortunately had to raise its ugly head, unfortunately. But at least I know that next time out that I will be properly, of course, treated for this when we go to the next race
He's a bit off the pace there.
at Suzuka in, of course, once again Japan for the 16th and penultimate round of this year's Reimagined 1995 Formula 1 World Championship.
Race order. Damon Hill, Michael Schumacher, Jean-Christophe Pouliot, Gerhard Berger.
Well, a few of the other drivers are still pitting. I didn't honestly think that I think Schumacher can definitely make it to the end of this race without having problems with his tyres.
This young man really is a superlative driver. He's losing ground.
Now we know you can't see it actually because of the graphics on this game, but when you see the tyres get more darker, that's normally a sign to show that they are being worn. I think Schumacher, he is going to stay out because then again he's already been lapped, so, and Berger's behind by 2 laps already, so I don't think there is going to be any change to the top 6 here, even though we've seen Magnussen in 6th place. But like I said, we can clarify that due to him receiving multiple warnings of unsportsmanlike behaviour, conducts.
Race order. Damon Hill, Michael Schumacher, Gerhard Berger, Jean-Christophe Pouliot.
He will be disqualified from the overall race classification, even though it's only been his first Grand Prix start in Formula 1 here, which is a real shame. I expected a lot from the young Danish driver, but I feel like I've been severely let down.
He must be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car.
But I don't believe what I've just saw, and since Gerhard Berger has just pitted, Jean-Christophe Pouliot in his Red Bull sponsored Sauber Ford is now in 3rd place as we go to the final 3 laps of this afternoon's 1995 Pacific Grand Prix.
The gap is growing.
A little skid on the curb again. That corner has been such a menace for Schumacher this afternoon, and I don't know how it has, but I think it's just been the handling of the car.
Race order. Damon Hill, Michael Schumacher, Jean-Christophe Pouliot, Gerhard Berger. They're really right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time. The gap is increasing.
Well, since he's so far ahead, I think Damon Hill must be on his... coming up to his final lap here. We certainly weren't expecting this result, everybody, but this has put him right back in the Drivers' Championship hunt here. As Damon Hill... I was just going to say, my mistake, he's just started his penultimate lap. So the next time around, he'll be starting his final and 83rd lap.
Only 2 more laps to go.
Well, I mean, when we've had this situation on many occasions here on Grand Prix Formula 1, there's nothing else we can really say, but as you did say in the last race, Murray, I know he was already improving from the last race anyway, but the fact he has had another consistent points finish.
It's not enough to be lucky. You've got to be good. And he is that. It's a win for Damon Hill. Frank Williams is going to be very happy with this win.
A great result. Well done to Damon Hill, who takes the checkered flag and wins the 1995 Pacific Grand Prix as Michael Schumacher comes in an unfortunate but very respectable 2nd place.
Second, Michael Schumacher.
That's a marvellous performance, and it's going to mean championship points. It looks to me, yes! Unbelievable! It's a win for Damon Hill. Frank Williams is going to be very happy with this win. This young man really is a superlative driver. That's in the points. What a superb race he's had. What an amazing recovery. This'll really help the team in this year's Constructors' Championship. What a fascinating season this is turning out to be.
Well, an unexpected early finish to that particular race, since once again he was already lapped Michael Schumacher a whole lap ahead of him beforehand. But what an amazing achievement for Britain's Damon Hill in his Renault-powered Williams, and he takes his 3rd race victory of this year's 1995 reimagined FIA Formula 1 World Championship. What an eventful 83-lap race we've had, but we do know that from the other results that we've had, including, of course, Jean-Christophe Bourgnon finishing in third, that is only provisional. We do know that also, along with the likes of Jan Magnussen in his McLaren Mercedes, and also a few of the other drivers who may have picked up unsportsmanlike behaviour warnings, we still can clarify that Damon Hill is the official race winner of this year's 1995 Pacific Grand Prix, and but we will have to have a few hours of confirmation from the FIA stewards on the final, of course, definite three drivers who will make it to be on the podium shortly afterwards. But once again, most importantly, once again to clarify, for another remarkable race victory, for the first time since his second one back at the Hungarian Grand Prix at the Hungaroring, Britain's Damon Hill wins his third race victory of the 1995 FIA Formula 1 World Championship, and once again is the winner of this year's 1995 Pacific Grand Prix. Well, there you go, everybody. An unexpected, almost kind of worst-case scenario situation there going into the final, of course, few quarters of that particular race. But with that, that concludes full extended race highlights of round 15 of the 1995 reimagined FIA Formula 1 World Championship with the 1995 Pacific Grand Prix from TI Circuit Aida. Honestly, that particular race, from, of course, the video gamers we have been using for this series, that was the most anarchic and most chaotic race we've had all season long. And I know I've said that quite a few times this series, but to see what we saw earlier on, just because of the AI in the, of course, in this game, how it's programmed, it was just absolute madness. But we're quite relieved that, of course, the race is now done and over with. But regardless of that happening, and unbelievably, we had another quite shock result as well, because he hasn't won since, I think, the Hungarian Grand Prix. But for the third time in his, of course, of this season, Britain's Damon Hill, in his Williams Renault, takes another race victory of the championship, and that has put him right back in contention to compete and also, of course, race alongside his championship rival from, of course, last year, and that being, once again, the current world champion, Germany's Michael Schumacher in his Benetton. Unfortunately, he can only manage second place, but an absolute dominant drive from the British driver, and he managed to finish 1 minute ahead following those unexpected pit stops, and due to the unexpected damage he picked up from a few of the other drivers who ended up either hitting him or he accidentally hit also one of the drivers, because he did pick up, unfortunately, a unsportsmanlike behaviour conduct warning from the stewards. But he wasn't the only one, and we'll get straight to that, of course, very, very shortly. But Once again, we can also now confirm that due to also an unexpected, of course, due to the erratic driving style from the Frenchman of Jean-Christophe Bourgnon, who you did actually see right at the end of the race, did finish in 3rd place, but the stewards have ruled him out for being disqualified, and in his place from 4th, initially the Austrian Gerhard Berger in his Ferrari has been promoted to 3rd place. So he's back on the podium after a long time away. I think from, the last time he was on the podium, I think, was back at the Monaco Grand Prix, in, of course, when he finished 2nd. But good to see that the Ferrari team had a better race that they've had in recent, of course, times so far. But also, with that being said, let's get straight on to clarifying the classified top 10 finishes at the end of 83 laps of this year's 1995 Pacific Grand Prix. Once again, to clarify, Damon Hill wins the race with a total time of 1 hour, 49 minutes, 25.176 of a second. And then, once again, the current world champion, Germany's Michael Schumacher in his Benetton, finished 1 minute, 35 seconds, 0.474 hundredths of a second. And then Gerhard Berger finished behind by 1 lap. But a brilliant result there, once again, for the Brazilian of Rubens Barrichello in his Jordan Peugeot, and once again finishing behind by 1 lap and getting 3 points there. But once again, another brilliant result also for the Mugen Honda team, with Japanese driver Aguri Suzuki taking over from Martin Brundle, who got a podium in the last race at the European Grand Prix at the Nürburgring. He gets 5th place and 2 championship points, and also finished behind by 1 lap. And rounding off the top 6, and amazingly back in the points after facing a few disqualifications in previous races, the Finnish driver Mika Salo in his Tyrrell Yamaha managed to hold on for the final championship point in 6th place and finishing behind by 2 laps. But we also did have, if you did not know, that we also had unexpected disqualifications for the young rookie Danish driver who took over from Mika Hakkinen following an operation for treating his appendicitis, and that's being Jan Magnussen. But we have the FIA have ruled him out for disqualification due to multiple unsportsmanlike behaviour warnings, and as well as that, also both him and his British teammate of Mark Blundell have both been disqualified from the race. So it's a double disqualification for the Marlboro McLaren Mercedes team. A weekend to forget for both drivers, and we do know that unbelievably Mark Blundell has now also been threatened with a 1 race ban, of course, as of going into the next race, following that quite unsporting style of driving, which was quite unfortunate there, and quite undeserving, really, of him to drive in that style of as we just saw earlier on in the race. But just out of the points, also another great result for Mugen Honda. The Frenchman Olivier Panis managed to, of course, he was promoted up from where he was initially, I think, down in 8th place. But he's now moved up due to the disqualification of, once again, of Jan Magnussen. And he finished behind by 3 laps. And another great result, once again, for our Northern Irishman Eddie Irvine, who gets 8th place in his Jordan Peugeot, along with Rubens Barrichello, finishing behind by 5 laps. And rounding off the top 10 in 9th place is fellow Brazilian Roberto Marino in his 40 course Ford. He narrowly avoided disqualification, picking up 2 warnings throughout the race. And rounding up the top 10 in his second home race was also Footwork Hearts Taki Inoue of Japan, also behind by 7 laps also as well. So with that, all of course clarified by the FIA stewards, and to also even though he didn't win the race, still a great result for once again Michael Schumacher, for also getting the fastest lap of 1 minute 16.639 hundredths of a second. So there you go, everybody, and if you can tell, obviously my voice is a little bit more deeper than usual. That's because I'm still struggling with a sore throat at the moment. I have been quite mindful of it, even though that this unexpectedly happened, but I've been trying to avoid straining my my throat, of course, as we heard in commentary. I would also like to apologise for the amount of times I had to clear my throat, because it's just, it felt like that something was in there, and luckily I've managed to of course maintain it, I'm very grateful that I haven't lost it completely as of yet, so be thankful for that, everybody. But as we go straight on with, of course, updating the current situation in the Drivers' and Constructors' Championship point tables at the moment, this is getting very serious now as we go to the last two races of this particular reimagined 1995 Formula 1 season. And as we get to the points and the tables so far, and as we start with the Drivers' Championship, and with that all-important points finish there for Michael Schumacher, getting another podium finish, and since David Coulthard failed to score in the points for this particular race, that now means he is now currently leading the Drivers' Championship at the moment with 62 points, and David Coulthard now drops down back to second and with 57 points, and as still of currently, and he is just 5 points away from, of course, still with keeping up with Michael Schumacher there. But due to that amazing third, of course, victory, Grand Prix victory for his fellow British teammate for Williams, Damon Hill moves up from initially 4th place. Well, then actually, to be fair, he was actually in 3rd before the start of this particular round, but he has closed the gap now on his fellow Scottish teammate of once again Coulthard with 54 points, and he's only just 3 points behind him also going into the next race. Once again, following the disqualification of Mark Blundell, he stays in 4th place with 36 points, 18 points difference between him and Damon, and as well as Johnny Herbert not finishing in the points. Also, Schumacher's British teammate for Benetton with 31 points, and he's currently 5 points difference between him as there as well. A narrow, unfortunate performance there for the Frenchman of Jean Alesi. Also in his Ferrari, he nearly avoided disqualification. A few bits of contact during the race from earlier on as of this edition of Grand Prix Formula 1, but he still currently stays in 6th place with 28 points, 3 points behind also Johnny there. And unbelievably now there's only a 1 point difference between once again Alesi and Brazilian Rubens Barrichello in his Jordan Peugeot with 27 points. Gerhard Berger, after the all-important podium finish there, finishing in 3rd place, has now moved up from initially 9th to now 8th place, and is now got 17 points and just a 10-point difference between Rubens there as well, while Eddie Irvine is still currently challenging once again Gerhard Berger in 9th place by only 2 points also as well in the other Jordan Peugeot, and rounding off the top 10. But this is, of course, as we mentioned at the top of the programme, this was his final race, and it's a real shame that he had to go out being disqualified, and since he had no points there, of course, once again Jean-Christophe Bourgnon rounds off the top 10 in his Sauber Ford, and he is only managed to get 14 points out of the few races that he has took part in. And of course, next time out he will be replaced by his fellow teammate who was there while he had once again a head injury assessment from of course, from a near-fatal accident he picked up. If you may remember us mentioning it from earlier on in the programme, in the series also as well, at the last year's Monaco Grand Prix at Monte Carlo, he will be replaced by Carl Wendiger, who's currently in 12th place at the moment with 5 points, and currently out of the top 10 also as well. Olivier Panis, once again, of course, is still in 11th with 10 points, and a 4-point difference between Jean-Christophe there, and once again also in 13th, and tied also with Yukio Katayama is Martin Brundle, and then also in 15th we have Mika Hakkinen, who currently is still, of course, once again recovering from his recent operation of treating his appendicitis, but he will be back next time out at the next Grand Prix, of course, which will be at the Japanese Grand Prix, and we'll hopefully see him back in, of course, his McLaren in a few weeks' time. And once again, he is currently tied with Taki Inoue, who once again missed out on the points, but Mika Salo in 17th has finally got another point, and he's currently got 2 points over, once again, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, who narrowly avoided disqualification also for the Sauber Ford team, currently in 18th place. Well, of course, I know that went a little bit more, of course, I went a little bit more further down than I expected, but just to remind you all, of course, as we draw to the last 2 races of the championship, I thought that it's important to keep an eye on those low-scoring drivers, as well as the ones currently at the top of the championship table. But with that covering once again now the Drivers' Championship, let's have a look at the Constructors' Championship next. And as of currently, at the moment, even though that David Coulthard finished out the points, but that all-important win for their Damon Hill, that has meant that Williams Renault continue their lead in the top of the Constructors' Championship, and now they've unbelievably hit the triple figure barrier of 106 points at the moment, and they are 17 points ahead of Benetton Renault going into the last 2 races. So Benetton are not out of the championship as of yet. There are still 20 points up for grabs, so of course Schumacher and Johnny Herbert really need to work together to try and close that gap down if Benetton Renault are going to compete against the current of course Constructors' champions themselves of Williams at the moment. In 3rd place, once again, because of no points for the double disqualification for McLaren Mercedes, they stay in 3rd place with 48 points, and they are currently 35 points away, so they are now officially out of the championship, of course, Constructors' Championship hunt. It's all down now to either Williams or Benetton for the last 2 races there, but Ferrari, due to that great points finish there, finishing 3rd there for, once again, Gerhard Berger, they have now moved 1 point ahead of Jordan Peugeot, still in 4th place at the moment, but they are also just 4 points behind McLaren, so they could also just nab 3rd place in the last 2 races. That is, of course, if Jean Alesi and Gerhard Berger can get another all-important high points finish going into the next race. But also, Jordan Peugeot are just also 1 point, or sorry, you make that, of course, 23 points ahead of, once again, of Sauber Ford there in, of course, 6th place. And Ligier Mugen Honda have also moved up once again to only 5 points between them, still in 7th place at the moment with 15. Tyrrell Yamaha have moved up with from 5 points to 6 points thanks to that 1 point picked up there by Finnish Mika Salo, but they still remain in 8th place, and still at the bottom in 9th place is Footwork Kart, still only with 3 points at the moment. Well, Well, there you go, everybody. That is, of course, the rundown of of course, once again, the drivers and also constructors championship tables as we go into the last two races of this year's 1995 Reimagined FIA Formula One World Championship. And as I just said, I mean, I'm not normally a loss for words, and I know we've had that occasionally here, of course, on this series of Grand Prix Formula One. But for what we just saw as of yesterday, I mean, it couldn't have been any more anarchic, as I just said earlier on. But it was still quite an eventful but unpredictable race, and it still made it very interesting, of course, as we go into, once again, the last two races of the championship. And with that being said, you can join us just next week, of course. You've only just got a week to, of course, wait until we move to the 16th and penultimate round of this year's 1995 Reimagined Formula One season, as next time on Grand Prix Formula One we'll be staying in Japan, but we'll be heading to the ever so popular Suzuka circuit for, once again, the Japanese Grand Prix. And unbelievably, if you go back to, of course, a year ago, as of the year of 1994, in quite the foul weather conditions, Damon Hill took an all-important race victory to close the championship gap just down to a handful of points over his German rival, a championship rival of Michael Schumacher driving for Benetton. And but as it stands at the moment, current weather conditions, as we said earlier on in the program, we had glorious sunshine. We're expecting dry weather for, of course, for the last two races of the championship. But we are certainly in for another all-important championship deciding race. It's still all to play for at the moment, with David Coulthard holding on to that championship. Of course, as I said, he's already now dropped down once again to second place with only a 5-point difference, and then also once again Damon Hill there with in just 3 points behind him as well. So it couldn't get any closer as we go into the last two races of this particular championship. And it's very different because in real life, in the real life season 30 years ago, this was the race that Michael Schumacher actually won, and he also secured the his second of course, FIA Formula One World Championship title with only 2 races to go because of how dominant he was in the real-life season. It's been different also in this reimagining of the season in this series, but we, of course, like I said, as I've mentioned, right at the top of the series, I'm just rolling with it, and I hope that we can at least have Michael Schumacher hopefully try and secure the championship. But it would be quite exciting if we go down to the final race at Adelaide in Australia, which will be happening from next month in November. And also, don't forget, as well as that to look forward to, we also have, once again, UEFA Champions League group stage highlights action from, of course, once again, the world of the biggest club football tournament in all of Europe. And, of course, you can join, once again, Gary Lineker from later on this evening from 10:35 p.m. after the news and weather from, of course, the, once again, from Jackpot Button Lewis Productions. And we'll be having extended live highlights of, once again, all of the recent games from the current group stage part of this year's UEFA Champions League 2025 to 2026 season, where we've also got matches such as Athletic Club Bilbao against Qarabag FK, Galatasaray against Bodo Glimt, and Atlanta against Slavia Prague, and also Bayern Munich against Club Brugge, Chelsea taking on the Dutch club of Ajax, Eintracht Frankfurt taking on the fellow Premier League champions of Liverpool, and also Monaco taking on Tottenham Hotspur, and also former champions of Real Madrid against Juventus, and also the Portuguese club of, once again, Sporting Lisbon taking on the well-known French club of Marseille. And there is a great lineup there of also of European club football matches to look forward to as of later on in, of course, on today, as of all of the exciting, unmissable sport that you can catch up on here on Jackpot Button Lewis Sport Productions. But as well as that, we also have got highlights also from the Sky Bet also Championship League as well, and we've also got highlights from the matches that also took place from earlier on this afternoon / evening, and also we have Swansea City against Queen's Park Rangers, Watford taking on West Bromwich Albion, Wrexham taking on Oxford United, and Sheffield Wednesday taking on Middlesbrough also as well. So there's certainly a lot to look forward to as we you can catch up all here once again in the world of Jackpot Button Lewis Sports Productions. But with that being said, it's time for us to bid you a fond farewell and sayonara, as they would say over in Japan, of course. But we are certainly set for another exciting race next time out here on Grand Prix Formula 1. Once again, Damon Hill takes his third race victory of this year's Reimagined 1995 season. He's closed the gap once again on his Scottish teammate of David Coulthard, who now has lost his championship lead in the Drivers' Championship to Germany's Michael Schumacher for Benetton. And we are certainly set for another exciting race as we head to the penultimate round of this year's 1995 Reimagined Formula 1 season. But once again, from everyone here from the Grand Prix Formula 1 studio, and of course myself, Jack Wright, thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you very, very soon for the next round of this 1995 Formula 1 Reimagined FIA Formula 1 World Championship with the Japanese Grand Prix from Suzuka. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you in next week. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye. Are we done? Woo! There we go. Well, that was a bit of a challenge, wasn't it? Especially with me having that sore throat and everything. But what an absolute chaotic race that was. I never would have thought that that's the most amount of drivers that we've had disqualified from just how they drive in the game. That is just absolutely outrageous, isn't it? Well, it's a good job that we finally got that out of the way, but at least we know, of course, I know Suzuka is going to be a lot more of an easier circuit, you know, when it comes to the drivers racing on there, though. But we have got certainly a really exciting end in prospect of this season. I feel like it's going to go down to the final race in Australia. I have got this inkling. I feel like it's going to be, if it's going to go down to the final race, that would be a brilliant end to this series. I think that will be absolutely amazing. Well, we can only hope and dream that, can't we? But I'm sure it might happen. Who knows? Anything can happen, as of course Murray Walker would used to say, and it usually does. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves. But well done, everybody. That was another quite unpredictable episode of Grand Prix Formula 1. But that clarifies and concludes round 15 of the 1995 Reimagined FIA Formula 1 World Championship with the 1995 Pacific Grand Prix from TI Circuit Aida in the Pacific. And cuts. If you enjoyed this race here on Jackpot Button Lewis Productions, let me know on what you thought of the race by giving a like on this video and subscribing so you never miss out on future races with more exciting classic retro Grand Prix racing action. And also once again, let us know on your thoughts on the video by commenting down below in the, of course, comment box. And we look forward to seeing you for some more exciting, more future Grand Prix racing action, all here on Jackpot Button Lewis Productions, here on YouTube.